Нужно снимать это.
smartphones and flat screens took the world by storm. At the same time, environmentally friendly cars and alternative energy sources became popular. All these modern technologies need rare earths. For centuries, we didn't even know they existed. But now, they shape our future. They open up amazing possibilities, but at the same time threaten to destroy our environment. Today, they are more valuable than oil or gold. Rare earth metals. 97% of the world's supply of rare earths is mined in China. Rare earths mined and refined with dirty and outdated methods are bought by high-tech companies around the world to produce smartphones, electric cars, and wind turbines. Rare earths are already in short supply, and they're expensive. Global consumption has doubled during the past 20 years and is still rising steeply. Therefore, researchers are looking for new deposits around the world.
But many natural deposits are in remote, sensitive ecosystems. In the rainforest, for example, or in coastal areas, or they're mined in countries where people are working under inhuman conditions. But due to new technologies like green energy generation and so on, the demand for rare earths is rising, and we're now more interested in these elements because of their economic value.
Scientists hope to find millions of tons of rare earths in the Pacific, raw materials that are urgently needed for the green technologies of the future. But is it okay to ransack our oceans to produce solar panels, electric cars, and wind turbines? How green is our future if we have to destroy pristine ecosystems? To isolate rare earths, mining companies use sulfuric acid, nitric acid, and hydrochloric acid. This produces highly toxic radioactive effluents. As demand for smartphones and flat panel displays rises, China's production of rare earths increases accordingly. One by one, mines in other countries close down. The world is now almost entirely dependent on China's rare earths. Entire industries cannot function without rare earths anymore. Without them, the lights will go out, quite literally, because, for instance, energy-saving light bulbs contain rare earths. Electric vehicles are the future, but their engines need strong magnets with lots of rare earths in them. Dysprosium makes the magnets of electric car motors heat-resistant, but it's expensive and environmentally damaging. Wind turbines are spreading quickly. In 2020, they will account for 6% of global electricity generation. The problem? The latest large-scale offshore wind turbines are very powerful, but they work with large magnets that contain huge amounts of rare earths. A massive problem for the environment.
In general, rare earths play an important role for alternative energy generation. You could say that renewable energy generation requires non-renewable raw materials, and rare earths are a prime example of that. A 5-megawatt wind turbine, for example, contains 800 kilograms of neodymium and 200 kilograms of dysprosium. In total, 1 ton of rare earths for a single 5-megawatt wind turbine.
Rare earths. However important they may be for the future of our modern technologies, their environmental problems are hard to control. Aren't all those tons of rare earths used in electric cars and wind turbines exacerbating the environmental problems they're supposed to solve?
Beijing has stepped up its threats to stop the export of rare earths to the US. That means prices would rise and America's big tech and defense companies could be hit hard. Now, what are rare earths exactly? Well, it's a group of 17 elements, most of which you probably have never heard of. If you want to make magnets, you need neodymium, and lanthanum is a glass additive used in lenses for precision optical equipment and lasers.
China wants to defend itself against U.S. tariffs with a delivery freeze. That would hit home hard. The production of mobile phones, solar systems, computers, and some weapons would grind to a halt without China's rare earths. So the U.S. government is already looking into alternatives from regions like Africa. But it'll take years to get production there to the point where it can match industry needs. U.S. companies won't be able to wait that long.
I've never seen anything like the human devastation in eastern Congo. The violence there is worse than anywhere else in the world, the deadliest conflict in the world since World War II, and the highest rates of sexual violence. It's a result of this, your cell phone. Basically, there are 4 minerals that come from the Congo that are in every one of our electronics products. Gold and what we call the 3 T's, tantalum, tin, and tungsten. So basically, the armed groups in eastern Congo act like a mafia. The mines themselves are controlled and taxed by these armed groups, by these militias. And then the smuggling routes, as they're smuggled across the borders to neighboring countries, particularly Uganda and Rwanda, those smuggling points are all controlled by these armed groups. All these places, they're making huge amounts of money by taxing and stealing the resources and smuggling them out of the country illegally.
And the minerals are smuggled out of Africa. They head to Asia, to smelting companies in Thailand, Malaysia, China, and India to be refined. Finally, the 3 T's in gold are processed into components, and they end up all over the world in the products we know and love. Cell phones, Blackberries, laptops, iPods, video game systems, and digital cameras.
This is one of the thousands of unregulated, unmonitored mines in the DRC. It's crawling with children, working like modern-day slaves. A 12-hour-long day of punishing work may earn them the equivalent of £1. Although one of the poorest countries on earth, DRC is rich in minerals. But a history of brutal colonial exploitation looks like being repeated. And wretched whether or not, the rush is on for a mineral the DRC has in great abundance, cobalt, and it's fast becoming more precious than gold. It's a critical ingredient in lithium-ion batteries which power smartphones and laptops. An army of children are at the heart of the mining production. Wearing no shoes and in the most wretched conditions, Dorsan is ordered to retrieve the sack he's forgotten. There's an urgency now. The rains make this dangerous work even more risky, and Dorsan's told in no uncertain terms he risks a beating if he messes up again. Dorsan, with Richard beside him, have worked all day. they're 8 and 11 years old. Even this punishing work doesn't guarantee enough for food. Dorsan hasn't eaten for 2 days now. This most precious of minerals is often extracted and sorted by tiny hands. They don't wear gloves or masks, yet the World Health Organization says exposure to cobalt and breathing in its dust fumes can cause long-term health problems.
On trouve c'est les infections, mingi ni mama infection, ndio ile tunaona huko. Kasi mama anatumika makariel sana, tazama mtoto na infection shulungula.
The children's cobalt is sold cheaply to mostly Chinese traders who we film secretly. They don't ask questions about where their cobalt comes from or who's worked to extract it. They just want the best price. It's an intricate supply chain which allows easy deniability for the multinationals making huge profits. Most of these child miners will never own a smartphone. They barely survive from day to day. And many other children like Dorsan will be back again tomorrow, digging out one of the most sought-after minerals of our time for a pittance.
What I'm hearing and reading from experts is, don't worry about it. All they're doing is restructuring. Not that big a deal. What do you say?
I say that you shouldn't believe such stories. Let me just remind you, in the months leading up to the collapse of Lehman Brothers back in 2008, the kind of opening gun that brought us the global capitalist collapse, it would be easy to find statements by experts, by bank CEOs, telling us not to worry, it's a detail, it only affects one bank. None of that is normally true. The truth of it is the people who run these banks hide their difficulties, so what we're left with is very little. Lots of PR and a big question mark, because clearly that bank is in serious trouble, but we won't know the extent of it until they're good and ready or something blows, and then the whole game is up. The mass of people are very angry at banks. They bailed them all out in 2008 and 9. It is politically impossible for leaders today to do again for those kinds of banks what was done before. So I think that's why Deutsche, which no doubt tried to get another bailout, was told, well, either we're not going to give it to you, or you have to do some very big steps to make it look like we ought to do it again. Firing 18,000 people is that kind of act.
Since 2008, the global debt has exploded. We're talking absolute trillions that are pumped back into the system to actually keep the system alive. When people see the stock market going up, they automatically assume, because they've been wired and they've been educated by the mainstream media, that the stock market is the economy. Well, that's a fundamental mistake. The economy and the stock market are two completely different things. Now, what actually is happening with the economy, for every dollar of growth in the economy, $4 of debt has to be now pumped into it. So when you see the stock market and the stock market is going up and people think, oh, therefore the value must be increasing, it's the debt that's causing it to go up. Nothing to do with value. And what is actually happening in real terms is that we're actually witnessing a ghost crash of the market. Derivatives is a forward futures bet of something that's going to happen in the future. What actually is happening in real terms is that the derivatives, the financial bets, the future events are actually what is causing the manipulated, fraudulent, corrupt valuations that we're actually witnessing. We either carry on with a manipulated stock market or a manipulated financial system, which is actually only going to get worse, or we switch to a more decentralized, more open source system where effectively everything becomes accountable and checked for the first time. I think this crash, this financial crisis that we are in right now, isn't being spoke about and isn't being talked about on the mainstream media because it's not on their agenda. Central banks can print as much dollars and fiat as they want to actually keep a price suppressed. So the financial system, as we know it up until 2008, is a centralized system where people really, through fraud, can do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want.
Die Finanzindustrie hat in den vergangenen 50 Jahren mehr Macht an sich gerissen als irgendeine Kraft in der gesamten Geschichte der Menschheit. Sie ist die stärkste Kraft, die sämtliche Lebensbereiche durchdringt und uns alle vollständig beherrscht. Die Banken haben sich Institutionen geschaffen, die zum einen ihre eigenen Interessen vertreten und die es zum anderen auch noch geschafft haben, sowohl den Staat als auch die Politik von sich abhängig zu machen. Und das sind die Zentralbanken. Das gesamte System existiert heute nur noch aus einem einzigen Grund, weil es von den Zentralbanken am Leben erhalten wird. Und da die Zentralbanken im Grunde nur über zwei Mittel verfügen, haben sie diese beiden Mittel exzessiv eingesetzt. nämlich Geld drucken und Zinsen senken. Wir steuern unaufhaltsam auf den Zusammenbruch dieses Systems zu. Wann er allerdings genau kommen wird, kann man aus einem einfachen Grund nicht sagen. Niemand weiß, wie sehr sich das bestehende System noch manipulieren lässt, bevor es final in sich zusammenbricht. Und deshalb stellt sich in unseren Tagen die Frage, was erwartet uns vor dem Crash? Es wird mit großer Sicherheit eine weitere Ausweitung der Geldmenge geben, es wird einen weiteren Wertverlust der Währungen geben und ein weiteres Aufblähen der Finanzmärkte. Aber was wird die Finanzelite noch tun, um das System, das ihr nützt, am Leben zu erhalten? Eines ihrer wichtigsten Projekte ist die Bargeldabschaffung. Im Jahre 2012 wurde die Better Than Cash Alliance gegründet. Ihr erklärtes Ziel ist es, eine globale, bargeldlose Gesellschaft zu schaffen. Jeder einzelne Zahlungsvorgang, an dem wir beteiligt sind, wird registriert, wir können komplett durchleuchtet und überwacht werden. Und wer jetzt meint, das sei eine allzu düstere Zukunftsvision, der sollte einen Blick werfen auf den Vorschlag, den die mächtigste Finanzorganisation der Welt, der Internationale Währungsfonds, ins Gespräch gebracht hat. Der Plan des IWF sieht vor, auf das Bargeld Strafzinsen zu erheben. Das heißt, bei einem Kauf würde man bei Barzahlung mehr auf den Tisch legen müssen als bei bargeldloser Zahlung. Was können wir gegen diese Entwicklung tun? Wichtig ist in meinen Augen, das gegenwärtige Finanzcasino trockenzulegen. Dazu gehört ein grundlegendes Verbot von Derivaten und eine Zerschlagung des völlig aus dem Ruder gelaufenen Finanzsektors. Dazu gehört aber auch ein Verbot der Spekulation, insbesondere mit Nahrungsmitteln, aber auch mit Waffen. Dazu gehört aber auch eine Änderung der Steuergesetze. Es muss Schluss damit sein, dass der Mittelstand unendlich viel stärker belastet wird als die Großindustrie. Und es muss Schluss damit sein, dass Vermögen geringer besteuert werden als Einkommen. Es muss Schluss damit sein mit Gesetzen, die Erben riesiger Vermögen begünstigen, während sie die Erben kleiner Vermögen hart zur Kasse bitten. Und es muss vor allem Schluss sein mit den zahlreichen Steueroasen, in denen sich unvorstellbare Summen verstecken, die weltweit dringend für soziale Zwecke benötigt werden.
Our economy is in free fall. So the illusion is being kept real by the mechanisms that they're putting in place here, by suppressing rates, by not allowing the market to do its one and only job. We're borrowing from the future to sustain where we are in greater and greater and greater amounts. It just cannot continue like this, and everybody knows it. But everyone keeps on dancing. They think the music's going to keep on going, but maybe Deutsche Bank is sending us a warning shot across the bow. People don't realize whose money these institutions are playing with. They're playing with your money. Your money. So this is just not a unique thing to this one bank. They're all doing the same things. Every one of these banks, these too big to fails, is dependent on the next one. So a domino effect It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Most people are, when it comes to understanding the financial markets, don't have the slightest clue. And they believe that these leaders here have their best interest in mind, but they don't. No world leader, not one, on earth right now is allowing their markets to determine fair value. Instead, they are relying on their central banks to keep the easy money going, to hyperinflate bubbles and cause massive distortions, because this one is going to be the bubble to end all bubbles. World central banks' power exists in one thing. That is their ability to issue debt. The more debt they issue, the stronger they become. They are loving the calls for negative rates. They are loving the fact of calling for currency devaluations. It is the goal of world central banks to own the world. So we're watching world central banks, literally all of them, including the Federal Reserve, rise to the top of the pyramid like we had never seen before.
Лидер оппозиции господин Гуайдо вышел на площадь, поднял глаза к небу и, обращаясь к Господу, объявил себя президентом.
Juro ante Dios Todopoderoso asumir formalmente las competencias como el presidente encargado de Venezuela.
Ну, хорошо. Но Господь нам не сообщил о том, как Он отреагировал на это обращение. Никакого сигнала нам не подал. Поэтому думаю, что нужно вернуться на нашу грешную, бренную землю и руководствоваться демократическими процедурами и правилами.
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do. So great.
This is 17-year-old Michael Lynch, a burglar on bail, who is about to become a murderer. The punch is unprovoked. Lynch joins in, but he isn't only using his fists. He has a knife in his pocket, and just out of sight of the camera, Lynch stabs one of the two men in the heart, fatally. The stabbed man is a 20-year-old student from Essex, Daniel Pollen. Now Lynch turns on Andy, stabbing him in the chest and back. Meanwhile, another CCTV camera records Daniel collapsing, with blood pouring from his heart. Andy Griffiths is now on his feet, barely conscious, also bleeding heavily. Within minutes, police and ambulance are also on the scene, trying desperately to save Daniel's life. Daniel's killer was caught quickly. Michael Lynch was sentenced to a minimum of 15 years. The CCTV of Daniel Pollen's murder is being shown because his family want everyone to see what really happened.
It's such an unprovoked attack. Andrew and like my brother Daniel didn't do anything in any way to cause what happens to them. I just think people need to realise, you know, knife crime is everywhere, it happens all the time.
The police's main tactic to prevent stabbings is stop and search. Last year, this led to nearly 6,000 arrests in London alone, with over 3,500 bladed weapons taken off the streets.
In the most deprived urban areas in London, I think young people see that their prospects of gaining sufficient money through gainful employment to buy a home, to purchase a car, to settle down and, form a relationship and have children, they see themselves as being prevented from achieving those indicators, those signs of material success. And therefore, their lives, their horizons, for many people, are relatively limited. They're limited to, am I going to get through today without being attacked by other young people? Am I going to survive today without somebody disrespecting me?
Professor Bowling's research shows that some young people see a gang as the only way to be part of a family.
When somebody says, we'll protect you, we'll be your homies, we'll be the people who you can hang with, we'll be like your family, your fam, and we'll give you a sense of self-esteem and protection. In that context, I think that however reluctant they may be at first, many young people will choose the protection and the safety of a gang, and will choose the protection and safety that they feel of carrying a weapon.
I know people, including myself at one time, that would have said, I feel naked if I don't have my knife on me. Take my knife off me, and I don't feel right. I don't feel right. I feel like it's part of me, and that's not a joke. I felt the power when I held the knife.
Glasgow is the worst place in Scotland for knife crime. Almost all are gang-related.
The territories that we have and the gangs who operate within them have been there for 40, 50, 60 years. It's the same gang names. They fight in the same areas. And they will fight and attack you because you don't come from that area.
Ryan is 17. These wounds were inflicted just 48 hours ago. He was stabbed 4 times.
The blade was like 3 inches or something. A little kitchen knife. And it does that. I have for the rest of my life.
At the moment, we don't really invest in early intervention to divert young people from serious crime. We kind of allow the young person to run until they've got themselves into a situation which is, life-changing, and even to the point where it might involve injury to themselves or to other people. So I think early intervention in supportive and social ways is absolutely critical part of this process.
The real truth about knife crime in Britain today is that there is no simple solution.
Casi 40.000 incidentes con cuchillos, prácticamente 300 muertos en nada de tiempo en Londres, 77% de incremento, si no me equivoco. O sea, algo está ocurriendo que, como siempre, mi impresión es que está al margen de la realidad cotidiana o de la realidad de los que hacemos los medios o los periódicos o de los que nos creemos que informamos a la gente, porque ya la gente se informa de 1000 formas. Doctor, ¿hay algo que podamos analizar en torno al que ataca al azar, los casos que hemos visto? ¿Siempre se puede hablar simplemente de locura, porque siempre es lo que leemos, o hay algo más?
No, hay algo más. ¿Por qué se ataca al azar? Es porque la persona, el atacante en un momento determinado, tiene ganas de hacerlo. ¿Qué es lo que sucede para que ese verdugo te escoja como víctima? Es verdad que no debemos de meter miedo a la población, pero me temo que desgraciadamente en algunos casos, y quizá más de lo que pudiéramos pensar, es literalmente al azar. Es decir, te toca a ti porque yo tengo ganas de hacerlo. Es clásico de un sociópata, ¿no? Hago lo que me da la gana. Es decir, recordáis la naranja mecánica, ¿no? Muy parecido, realmente muy parecido. Violaban, mataban, acuchillaban, pero al azar, no importaba que les hubiesen provocado, no era el gusto, el placer de la violencia.
Es curioso porque el caso de Turín mata a un chico en Italia porque lo ve sonriente. Es que parecía muy feliz, dice.
Justamente la felicidad es algo tremendamente envidiable. Es decir, que alguien vaya sonriendo, que esté feliz, que esté alegre, puede literalmente ofender a otro que en un momento dado se sienta de alguna manera desvalido, se sienta hurtado por esa felicidad, ¿no?
Puede haber algún tipo de prueba de honor, ¿no?
Sí,
o de demostración. ¿Qué sabemos de esto?
Sin lugar a dudas, hay bandas en los cuales este tipo de ritual de agresión, dependiendo además del nivel o si quieres ingresar o no, tienes que pasar una serie de pruebas. Y algunas de ellas consisten, entre otras, una agresión gratuita, ¿no? Hay miles de personas en este momento que se encuentran, de alguna manera, lo voy a decir, asalvajados, es decir, viniendo, además, de unos entornos en los cuales ya muchos de ellos delinquían.
Ustedes pueden sondear, pueden ver lo que ocurre, y ahí está la gran pregunta, ¿no? ¿Puede ser algo que siempre ha ocurrido, repito, y ahora es más visible, no hay que alarmarse tanto, o están ocurriendo fenómenos de un incremento evidente?
genes that were supposed to be warrior genes that had to do with the metabolism of serotonin. If you have them and you're abused early in life, between birth and about 3 years old, it's real bad news. And people who get that usually turn into psychopaths. So this was a case of epigenetics. That is, you have genes, but then they're changed, they're turned on forever, as opposed to just in the correct context of being turned on. But what made more sense is that if you were treated well, it had the opposite effect. So these warrior genes became resilience genes that kind of negated the other tendencies to become a psychopath. And one of the major epigenetic markers, or what does the marking, is stress and abuse. If you have the genes already, that's not pathological. But if you're abused or abandoned early in life, that permanently sets them in a high form.
Two main areas of the brain of a psychopath that are not regulated correctly. It's orbital cortex and the amygdala. Orbital cortex is involved in inhibiting your behavior. Now, the amygdala, on the other hand, really causes behavior. And normally they're in balance, they inhibit each other. Now, in a psychopath, they're both turned off, so they don't inhibit each other and they don't regulate it. So the normal balance of animal drives and your social interactions, your morality, are not right. And part of it is how the rest of the brain is able to tell your orbital cortex the social context is correct now. Psychopaths don't have that. They're doing things completely out of context, out of social context, and that's the problem. If you are born with the biological markers for psychopathy, for example, that is the genetics and the altered brain pattern early on, if you are a susceptible kid, then environment means everything. It means a lot, maybe 80%, because those kids can be really thrown off track and they can be helped by a good environment too.
Una entidad globular es grabada por una cámara de seguridad y se observa cómo no está frente a la lente. Lo más sorprendente es que en diversas ocasiones pasa por detrás de un barandal. Un objeto volador no identificado es grabado cerca del volcán Popocatépetl, que en esos momentos presentó una intensa actividad con 5 explosiones. Es indudable que el ovni se encuentra cerca de la zona de la explosión. Durante un vuelo de Estambul a Kabul, que un objeto volador no identificado seguía a la misma velocidad a la aeronave. Durante más de 15 minutos, el ovni siguió al avión muy cerca.
50, how much chance do you think there really is that we will be contacted?
You know, when we were making the Star Trek series, in the middle of the first season, some people came to me and they said, "You may not know it, but you have been chosen as a kind of a vessel to carry information to this civilization to help prepare this society for the coming of another civilization, for alien arrival. And your character is a character designed to educate this public that there's nothing to fear, that it's possible to interact with other species." And I said, okay, it's okay with me.
Our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
This is real. This is not science fiction. We are being lied to on an unbelievable level. We do have a war taking place between different types of extraterrestrials. Of all the extraterrestrials that are out there visiting us today, most of them are benevolent. Most of them are the good guys. They've showed up in various cultures as gods, as angels, as benevolent spiritual teachers. And then you have a much smaller number that are very aggressive and very evil. So what's happening is that these fourth dimensional angelic types are fighting against these demonic, negative, evil reptilians. And this battle's been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. It didn't start on Earth, it got brought to us. It's been imported, let's say. And so this is a proxy war. It doesn't just happen here between these beings, it happens between us. The beings are fighting each other based on the choices that we make. The reason why is that we have a lot of free will over what's going to happen on this planet. So we have to authorize bad things to happen. The authorization comes by us allowing ourselves to be conquered. The negative has to advertise what they're doing. They have to show us the symbols. They do it in music videos, they do it in movies, they do it at the Super Bowl halftime show, they did it in the Olympics opening and closing ceremonies. They put the symbolism in our faces. My point in telling you this is to understand that we actually have the control. We have the control over how the future is going to go. The negative beings are not allowed to do more than what we authorize. And so what their focus is on trying to get us manipulated to the point where we are selfish, greedy, manipulative to one another, and then in so doing, we authorize these disasters to take place. The war only is being fought because of us, and we need to fight for disclosure. Bringing the truth out to the public, getting this information out, will be what defeats this archetypal devil. The more that we act in a loving, positive, compassionate way, the more that those beings can fight on our behalf and can win. They have the ability to totally defeat the reptilians. So we are dealing with a corporate structure that has completely broken away from the elected, legitimate governmental bodies of the earth. They don't answer to anybody, they're not accountable to anybody, and they have a technological advantage that makes it very difficult to approach them on their own terms. But this is another interesting area, which is the idea that the secret space program itself actually does have its own alliance, where they are doing their part to try to bring all of their technology to us. Understand that the insiders have said that the technology in the secret space program is so vast that it would literally solve all of the problems we have on Earth. Clean up radiation, desalinate water and bring it to the point where it's drinkable, greening the deserts, solving all of our problems with trash, solving all of our problems with hunger, with poverty, starvation, homelessness, you name it. There is nothing that we can't do with the technology that already exists. This technology also includes portal travel, the ability for us to go to the stars. It's truly phenomenal stuff, and it shouldn't be kept hidden from us. I do think we're ready for disclosure. We've had generations of disclosure already happening. I know it's very hard for people to believe that this is true, but there actually is a lot of evidence. When people say there is no evidence, that is something the media has trained them to say. It is a psychological operation run by groups like the Central Intelligence Agency, trying to make you blind to the truth.
95% of our life is coming from the programs of life, how to live life that we get in the first 7 years of life. The Jesuits, for 400 years, they were boasting. People didn't understand. They say, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. Because they knew 7 years was the program period. And 95% of your life after that will be whatever that program is. The brain of a child under 7 is in a lower vibrational frequency. It's called theta. Theta is imagination. Oh, that's how kids play a tea party with mud pies, but to them it's a real thing. Theta is hypnosis. Before you can become conscious, if you don't have any programs, what are you going to be conscious of? It's sort of like I buy a new iPod and I take it out of the box and I push play and nothing happens. And you think, oh my God, I spent all the money and the damn thing isn't working. And then some little 7-year-old kid comes up and says, well, mister, you didn't download any music. How are you going to play something? It's like the brain is like the iPod. Consciousness is the screen where I can create. But if I don't have anything in the hard drive, I can't create. What kind of programs are required to live on this planet? I say, how do you get them? You just watch. You watch your parents, you watch your siblings, and your community, because you have to learn how many 100,000 rules. Think about it. Teach an infant these rules. Oh, you don't have to. First 7 years, they observe it and just download it. This is the unfortunate fact. 95% of our life comes from those programs in the subconscious. Every day, only about 5% of their life are you using conscious, which is creative. When you're thinking, that's a conscious mind function. What are you doing on Tuesday? If I ask you that, the answer's not out here, it's inside. So let's say we're having this conversation in a car, and I've been driving for 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden I look out the window, I go, I haven't paid attention to the road while we have the conversation. Can I say what the conversation was about? Yeah, we talked about this and this and this. And what was on the road during that 10 minutes? You go, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. So the moment you're thinking, you let go of driving the vehicle because you went inside. Well, it doesn't mean whatever you're doing, you stop walking or driving the car or doing a job. Those are programs in the subconscious because you've repeated them over and over again. So the subconscious is autopilot. When the conscious is busy, autopilot drives the vehicle. Point is, when conscious is busy, it's not observing what's going on. So people read self-help books. I go, well, you read the book, you got a lot of knowledge. I say, is your life changed? No, but you got a lot of knowledge. So here's the difference. The conscious mind is creative and can learn in any number of ways. Read a self-help book, go to a lecture, listen to this program. And conscious mind's going to get some awareness. But subconscious mind doesn't learn that way. Subconscious mind learns in 2 fundamental ways naturally. Hypnosis, which is the first 7 years. And after age 7, how do you put new programs in? Repetition, practice. You want to drive a car, you didn't learn how by just getting in the seat and put the key in. You had to practice driving the car. And once you completed it, you didn't have to go back and do it again. 95% of your life is coming from the subconscious. Your life is a printout of your subconscious behavior. I just say, look at your life. The things you like that come into your life come in because you have a program that supports them. But anything you struggle with, work hard at, put a lot of effort into making it happen, why you're working so hard, inevitably, you have a program that doesn't support that conclusion and you're trying to override the program. So you don't need to do a lot of shrink and psychology stuff. You just look at your life and say, where am I struggling? Because wherever you're struggling, inevitably it's a program in your subconscious that does not support that destination you've been looking for.